Welcome to the Hybrid Human Podcast. My name is Zach Ryan, and each week myself and my co-host Chase Price will be exploring the intersection of wellness, business, entrepreneurship, and more.
Get ready to learn, grow, and evolve with us on the Hybrid Human Podcast. Good to see you, homie.
You too, man.
This is a big episode for you.
We're trading places this week.
Yeah, going into the backstory a little bit.
I love it.
So just to prompt the audience, last week we touched on a little bit of my backstory. Zach hit me with the hard-hitting cues about the come up, and now it's time to turn the tables this week and get into it with you. And Zach, I'd love you to this is kind of an awkward question because it's something we don't get asked, but like, who is Zack Ryan? Just give me the high-level overview.
Fair. Yeah, so I guess I'll just give my background. So grew up outside of Boston, Massachusetts, 45 minutes outside of Boston. Growing up, played sports my whole life. Went to high school sports, went into college, went to Southern New Hampshire University, did a 3-year program there, accelerated through college, which I'll get into in a bit because it's funny. I was never a scholar by any means, so it was an interesting story there. Graduated, went into tech sales. That's my day job is in tech sales. And then moved to Austin, Texas for a year, Charlotte for the last 5, and really focused on things like, obviously my work is tech sales, fitness, running, starting to train for the Ironman, which we talked about a bit. Love being outdoors, love traveling. So doesn't really answer your question, but that's kind of my day to day and my backstory for the last 27, almost 28 years.
Yeah. So you're 28.
In 3 weeks, I'll be 28.
Okay.
June
nice.
June 23rd, so maybe 4 weeks.
Happy early birthday. That's
Thank
right.
you.
We're dropping the first
right.
podcast episode. So by the time you guys are listening to this, it's going to be after his birthday.
That's right. Yeah, probably a month after.
Yeah. But happy early birthday.
Thank you.
So let's take it back as far back as you want to take it, about maybe where your story starts to take shape. For me, that was middle school. It could be different for you, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about what made you who you are, whether that's elementary school, middle school, and your come up. That was in Boston, right? Yeah.
Well, outside of Boston, so in Massachusetts. But yeah, I was actually, trying to think about it when we were sort of prepping for the conversation, because I knew you'd ask me that because I asked you that. But it's interesting, man. I immediately go back to that elementary, middle school age, similar to you, where I was polar opposite. I was very timid. I was very quiet. I was very much so a homebody. Hated going to school. That never changed, but I hated going to school. Was just very timid and shy, more introverted. Mm-hmm. Always played sports, always was athletic. Growing up, it was baseball, basketball, soccer, always doing something. Remember coming off the school bus. I grew up in a neighborhood that had 40 kids. It was called Timberley Park. It had so many different houses and so many kids my age, and we'd all get off the school bus. 15 dudes would go to my house to play basketball. We would play basketball until my mom would yell out, "Dinner's ready." Everybody goes home, does their thing, and we did that from middle school through high school, and even we would come home for break on college. People would come over and play basketball and whatnot. So always a great time growing up with people around you, and that kind of helped shape me into being more extroverted and being around more people, getting more focused in athletics, which transitions me into high school, where I feel I really kind of found my own. Freshman year, I would say I was a little timid still and sort of introverted in my own shell, and then I broke out sophomore year. Started playing sports more competitively, started honing in on my friend group, and really kind of coming into my own and understanding who I was and what I liked. And obviously everybody goes through that, but for me, sophomore year of high school into junior year was really when I feel I became, who I am and who I was supposed to be at that time. And, it was a great experience through high school into college. Like I said, I did a 3-year program at Southern New Hampshire University studying business. Great experience. Was, like I said, I had a terrible GPA. I went to school to meet people. Mm-hmm. I wasn't really there for the books and all that stuff. So
what took you there to the first place, Southern New Hampshire University?
It was the first school I got into. It was one of 2 schools I got into. So I applied to probably 5. I got into 2. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those situations where it was hey, you're going to college, you're going to pay for it yourself. And they had like a guinea pig program for a 3-year degree. And I was like, 3 is cheaper than 4. Let me try it. So,
Did you look out of state at all?
so that was out of state for me.
Oh, okay.
It's
It
a
was.
private school out of state, but the way it worked with like, the grants and scholarships and all this stuff, like it worked out. I actually got a grant in high school as a baseball player. So through the baseball program, I got a grant in high school to pay for all my books, which was awesome. So that was like,
awesome.
a couple grand, whatever it was for books. But yeah, that was out of state for me.
Yeah, that was a dumb question. I knew it was Massachusetts, but like for someone from the South, you're just like Massachusetts, New Hampshire, it's all like the same shit.
It's so close. And it's funny. I was just talking to Francesca about that. It was like, hey, New England is so cool because you can live in Mass, but you're any given direction, like an hour to 2 hours away from a different state.
Yeah.
Versus here, it's like you drive 3.5 hours to the beach, you're still in North Carolina.
Right.
Or like
right.
you go 2 hours north of the mountains, you're still in North Carolina. So it's a huge state. Growing up in New England was awesome. But anyways, so went through college, graduated, started at a company in Boston, a tech company in Boston. We were acquired by a different company out of Texas. So I moved from Boston to Austin, Texas for a year.
And this is your first job out of college?
First job, and actually still with the company. So 7 years deep in July.
Very cool.
Very cool. So, well, interesting, I guess. So to say. But so moved to Austin, Texas for a year. Was promoted again to come to Charlotte, and I've been here ever since. So 7 years deep, 5 years in Charlotte. And yeah, man, it's been a good experience.
So talk to me about this journey through Austin from Boston. That's a pretty polar opposite ends of the spectrum as far as the U.S. goes.
Yeah.
What were your initial thoughts when you got to Austin? Did you embrace it fully? Were you gung-ho about it, or were you a little bit hesitant?
I knew it was a great question. I knew it was a good move for my career. And that's kind of where my head was at that point in my life. Was like, I'm laser focused on this career. I want to build a name for myself, build my own personal brand. Like, this was important. Great opportunity, so I took it. And it's funny, I was playing basketball probably 2 months before. It was like a work thing at lunch, playing basketball 2 months before I was going to move. I go up to block a shot, and for the record, I blocked the shot. So Jordan, if you're watching, I blocked the shot. Anyways, I come down, I land on his foot, break my ankle.
Damn.
So I'm in a cast, in boot or whatever, and crutches and all this stuff for a week. So I never even went to visit Texas before I moved there. Another guy that I was working with was also moving. There was 8 of us who moved at once. And I was like, yo, you want to be my roommate? He's like, yeah, let's do it. Save some money. So he picked an apartment online.
Oh, so 8 of y'all from Boston all went down to Austin.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
At least you had a little bit of a crew.
It was cool because we kind of merged our culture with their culture and like grew a team from 8 to 60, and now it's over 100, and cool experience. But anyways, I was like, want to be my roommate? We'll save some money. He's like, yeah, for sure. Let's look at apartments. Let's go down. I was like, well, I don't really want to do that. Like, traveling is going to be miserable. We picked one online and said, done. We'll do it. He flies down a week before me to go move in, goes to get the keys. He's like, dude, this place is in the ghetto. We don't want to live here. Like, there's nothing around us. It's a terrible place. Like, and it was an interesting apartment. It really wasn't that bad, but whatever. So he walks from that apartment a mile down the street and finds a different one. He's like, are you guys accepting like residents, whatever? Do you have open units, blah, 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 and gets an apartment on the spot in that place. So now I'm like, all right, I'm not moving in here, I'm moving in there. Haven't even seen pictures. Like, I'm moving in a week, whatever, I'll meet you down there. So they shipped my car. They picked up all the stuff from my house. The company did.
Nice.
Moved it all down there for us, which was amazing. But yeah, man, I moved there. And it's funny, like, looking at who I am now, I would never do this, ever. But I moved there. I never saw Texas. I didn't even have a layover there ever in my life. Like, never even touched down there once. Never saw the apartment. Didn't know what the rooms were like. Had no idea. But I was like, it's a good opportunity. I'll go. And that's kind of like a theme for my whole life, is like, get me in the room, give me the opportunity, and we'll make the most of it. But yeah, dude, it was totally different, polar opposite, but an amazing year, in Texas.
That's a huge, valuable lesson too, I think, for anybody listening who's young. Like, when you're young, you have the flexibility to take those crazy fucking chances.
Yeah.
To, go, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But like, there's kind of no strings attached to this. Like, you're going to be okay, even if shit does hit the fan. but you got to go and do those things, right? For me, that was traveling abroad. For you, is moving to Texas on a whim.
Yeah.
I mean, you had a job, yes, but like having no connections
Similar.
there,
Yeah, similar. I mean, it's like that saying, you got to live and experience everything you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like if you can't really know anything unless you go through it, unless you experience it. And that's such a, like, to your point, such a key, factor in life is like, as you experience more, you become wiser. And as you become wiser, you make better decisions to better yourself. So it's just like it's a cool thing to think about, because now I'm like, I would never do that. I'll do research and look at homes and, understand different things. It's a totally different part of my life at 21 versus 28. But,
Right.
it was a cool experience.
And so when you left Austin, were you nostalgic about it? Were you ready to go?
I was so ready.
You were?
I was so ready. It was, and again, totally different. I mean, it was a lot of going out. It was a lot of like partying. So have you been to Austin?
Yes.
So 6th Street. You're familiar
I thought it
with
was
6th
7th Street is where all the bars and stuff are. Is it 6th?
It's 6th Street. So I lived on 6th Street.
Okay.
So I lived on East 6th, which was like a transitioning area at the time. Now it's $1 million homes and super nice. But
is Rainy Street a thing?
Rainy Street is a thing.
Okay.
That's like all the old homes that are turned into bars and restaurants and super cool. But anyways, I lived on East 6th. You go down, there's like East 6th. You have the bridge, and then it's Dirty 6th, which is like the college bars and craziness, blocked off with cops on horses and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's West 6th, which is like a little bit nicer. I would say the nicer of the three areas for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Upper class, I would say, like classy spots. And then they also have, places on West where you can go out and kind of rage if that's your thing. But anyways, a lot of going out, a lot of, drinking and partying and experiencing the city for what it is, offering you in terms of the party life. And I was ready to turn that page. Like I said, I was, 22, I think, when I left there and came here. So I was totally ready. And I moved to Charlotte, and my sister lived here with her husband, but that's all I knew. Didn't have any friends, didn't know anybody. So again, kind of hit the reset button, clean slate to come to Charlotte. And again, was for, career opportunity, which was a nice promotion and advancement in my career. But yeah, man, looking back, like those moves were the best thing for me. Like taking a chance on Austin and then taking a chance on Charlotte was like the best thing I could have done. Personally, professionally, all the above. It just worked out. I feel super fortunate for that.
Yeah. That's also sick that you got to experience 3 kind of top tier cities early on. Like your first 3 places were those 3 cities. Because there's so much diversity and they each have their own thing going on. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's funny you say that too. Last night we were watching the Celtics game 5 against the Heat, which we won. It was great. So 3-2 series, head down to Miami. But hopefully when this airs, the Celtics are in like the championship finals, winning, probably deep into it at that point. But anyways, it's funny, man. Like we were talking about it last night. We kind of took growing up in Boston for granted. Like the Celtics and the Red Sox and the Patriots and the Bruins, like everybody won. Like to the point where you go into the city of Boston, there's a billboard that says like, 55 days since the last Boston championship. Like it's just crazy. Like the best sports city in the country, in the world, in my opinion. Obviously I'm biased, but yeah, it was funny you bring that up because we were talking about it last night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sick. Yeah, you came up in the golden era of sports in Boston. Really.
Tom Brady.
Yeah, Tom Brady. Which is sick. I'm sure there's a couple other cities that would argue about that, but there's no doubt. I'm obviously an Eagles fan. I'm a Philly guy, but you can't talk shit about Tom Brady.
No, well, you guys about to have your run.
Yeah, hopefully
You're about to have your run.
We'll see. So, talk to me about at this point in time. How is fitness playing a large role in your life? Is it significant or not really?
0, to be honest. Like I wasn't really lifting. I wasn't really running. I wasn't really doing anything. I was recovering from that ankle injury. Super laser focused on my career to the point where I was like trying to be the first one in the office, the last one out of the office.
The grind.
Kind of got caught in that rat race a little bit and just didn't prioritize my personal health. I was probably 20 pounds lighter or more, probably 30 at this point. But yeah, man, just not a priority at all. And to be honest, like, and we talked about this a couple episodes ago, I think part of it, looking back and reflecting, was that I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know how to structure a workout program, or how to program a running schedule, or how to swim and how to bike and how to do these different things, and what calories really meant and what macros really meant. Like, I had no idea. I was just going off of like, yeah, that looks good, I'll do that. And that was it. The more I got to experience, the more I got to know, to my earlier point, like I became wiser in that sense. And then I started to realize like, hey, I enjoy this. I feel good. I'm starting to look better objectively. And I figured now is a good time to really dive into this. So that's when fitness became a thing. But I would say it really up until like maybe 2 years before COVID. So what is that, 4 years ago at this point? 4 or 5, something like that. Fitness was kind of an afterthought for me, which is interesting to think about now, because I would say now it's flip-flopped, where I'm still very focused on my career, still want to succeed in that, facet of my life. But for me, I'm trying to plan my days around prioritizing fitness and wellness. Like, it doesn't need to be going for a run. It could be, hey, I'm going to read 10 pages of this book before I, kick off my first Zoom call.
Right.
Or, hey, I'm going to go for a walk with my dog and take some time to just like ground myself before diving into 9 hours of calls all day. Like, it's just a different mindset. And I think that's really benefited me personally, like from a wellness perspective, but also professionally. Entering the workday just super clear-headed with a clear mind and like very, very focused.
Do you remember a distinct like turning point where, whether it was somebody, whether it was a social media person or something that you connected with, or just saw their content and got you fired up to get into that space?
I wouldn't say it was like a social media situation. I would say for me, it was, I had an apartment gym, and like, I think the heaviest dumbbell was like 50 pounds. So I was able to do that, whatever. I was like not worried about it. But I remember going to the gym with a buddy. I think it was actually the Dowd YMCA, now that I think about it. And, there's some like heavy weightlifters in there. Like, I would consider them like bodybuilders who are training to be on stage.
Some big boys in there.
There's some big fellas in there. So anyways, I go in there and I'm working out with a buddy, and I'm seeing people just throw around 100-pound dumbbells, 120s, like effortlessly. And I'm like, damn, I definitely couldn't do that. And I'm thinking like, why am I not able to do that? And do I even want to? Like, I don't know if that was like something I wanted to do, but it kind of realized like, hey, like, you're progressing in all these other areas of your life and you're kind of stagnant in this one. And I feel like, and this is an analogy that I heard once before, but if you picture life as like a stool, and your stool has 4 legs, and it can be whatever 4 things you care about: family, fitness, career, wellness, whatever. Pick 4 things. If one of those is off, if one of those is out of balance, your stool's not going to be sturdy. Like, you're going to be rocking around back and forth, and you're not going to be level and just all in on all things that are important to you. So for me, that was fitness. I wasn't prioritizing it. And then that realization was like, hey, why are you not bettering yourself from a fitness perspective, but you're working so hard over here? Like, you need balance. And I think that's something that's just stuck with me, is like, balance is one of the hardest things to get, achieve, have, whatever you want to say. But one of the most important things, and one of the most impactful things for me, was like, having balance across all facets of my life has allowed me to have freedom to choose what I want to do each day. And it's just a different mindset. Totally.
Yeah. So you moved to Charlotte. What year was that?
I guess that'd be June of 2018.
June 2018. So you're still prioritizing work kind of at this point. You're starting to get into different fitness routines and everything. What was it first? Was it weights and just kind of getting acclimated to the weight room?
Yeah, that's it. Wasn't running, wasn't biking. It was weights just to start.
Just because it's easy, accessible. It's kind of what everybody else is doing.
And I think totally. And I think the thing is like, yeah, I can just go to the gym and mess around for a half hour to an hour, and I'll, break a sweat and have a workout and call it a day. And you don't know what you're doing at first, but you just get in there. Like, I've always done like sports specific workouts.
Yeah.
I was a baseball player, I would train for that. Or a basketball player, I would try to be faster, or like better ball handling while I'm dribbling, and all these different things. Like, very sports specific training. I was never the guy who was in the weight room squatting, benching, deadlifting. Like, I just didn't.
You didn't hit legs until 2022.
No. Yeah, basically.
Well, it makes sense though, because coming up, athletes, like, you're going to obviously, specialize in whatever's going to help you be better at your sport. But other than that, you probably don't know what the fuck to do.
No
Like,
clue.
when all of the other people, like me, for example, I didn't play sports in college or anything like that. I would just go to the weight room for like a hobby, and I'm just throwing around weights, like kind of in that group of people. Like we would just go casually.
Yeah.
Like that was kind of a hangout for us. Was like the rec center. You know what I mean? So that was a way for me to kind of like make new friends and everything. But if you don't have that, you're just kind of in the weight room. You're like, well, fuck, there's a TRX. Like maybe I'll try that. Like,
Totally.
maybe I'll hop on the treadmill, just figure it out.
Yeah.
But there's no direction there. And I think that's where a lot of people find it hard to maybe enter the fitness space in the first place because there's just zero direction. They're like, I don't know what I'm into. So how do I even know where to start?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think that's such a big thing and such a huge miss in the education system, in my opinion, is like we should start that way younger. Like two things that I would think that I would start way younger if it was up to me was financial literacy,
Yeah.
and which is a totally different conversation, and the fitness thing is like, why don't we understand how to like train and work out and the importance of like cardiovascular health and getting into it, like why muscle mass later in life helps with bone density, and there's so many different things that you can get into from a fitness space that's like if you're taught this young, you're able to cascade that throughout your life and continuously evolve and improve on it, and you're going to be a healthier, better you.
Yeah.
It's just we're not taught that really at all.
That's a great point because I do remember even in college, we had these required credits. One was like gym, like you had to take a gym class or whatever, or I did at least.
Which is like playing dodgeball.
Yeah, I mean, it's dumb shit where you're going and you're just kind of checking a box for the coach and showing up and you get an A. But like, why are we not actually trying to teach people, like, in a day and age where diet is such a big issue in our country? There's like 60 to 70% of people are obese or overweight. Like, why isn't that the core curriculum of that class? And it's like, yes, you can do some exercise, but like just a lack of knowledge, I think, leads to a lot of the epidemic that's going on with that. And that starts with the education system, which is just not catered to, create healthy individuals in general.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the diet thing too is so funny, and even training, like you hear, not to generalize by any means, but females will say, I don't want to lift heavy weights or eat too much of X because I don't want to become bulky. And like, that's just one example. Like, I'm sure men say different things and whatnot, but that's one example to consider is like, that's not necessarily the truth. That's exactly what's going to happen to you. Like, X plus Y doesn't always equal Z. You know what I mean? Like there's different scenarios and body types and calories and macros and things that come into, play. And it really is a science. And if you're not taught that to understand it, then you're going to be afraid of these different things because you have social media influencers who use their massive following, unfortunately, to push a negative agenda to say, hey, buy my program, buy my, diet, buy this, that, the other thing from me because I'm in great shape and you need to be like me because I know what I'm talking about and here's how I got there. Mm-hmm. And it's not one size fits all. It's very much so a custom approach. And that's why I'll give Jacob Zemer a huge shout out. Like Zemer talks about real nutritional, educational things that are focused on fitness and foods and prioritizing like just being good 90% of the time, and encourages people to go have a pizza, go have a burger, drink a beer if you want to, like being a real human. Like it's not reality to be perfect 365, out of the year, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you can't be 24/7, 365, 100% dialed in. It's just not realistic. I mean, maybe if you're a professional athlete and you're quite literally paid to do so, but in my mind, it's like, dude, there's so much information and knowledge out there that people are kind of just half-assed throwing around, and it's not always accurate, that people get scared and they're like, I don't want to do this and become this because they don't really know what the outcome is going to be.
Right.
And I feel like we need to do a lot better job at educating people on actual facts and not just like phony stuff and opinions.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember a couple years ago, that was a big thing of like women being afraid of getting too big. On the men's side, I remember, being afraid to like run too much because I didn't want to become a string bean.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's just, there's these stereotypes that go both ways. We digressed a little bit from, your story, but just to kind of get them back on track. So I do want to talk a little bit about your career path. So
Yeah.
you get back to Charlotte, you're dialed in, you've been with this company like 4 or 5 years at this point, right?
Yep.
So for you, somebody who, for lack of a better term, you're climbing the ladder in corporate America, you're in sales, right? So talk to me about your mentality, because it's very easy. We've all heard about friends of ours from college who went into sales, burned out, they fucking hated it. They had to build their books, do this, that, and the other, and they just failed at it. Why do you think you succeed when so many others kind of fail and burn out?
It's a great question. I think I set proper expectations with myself, as well as with my leadership throughout the last 7 years to, we're in it together. It's very much sales. It's interesting. People often think like, I can't do that. I'm not, X, Y, or Z type of person. But sales isn't, in my opinion, it's not that. It's a people business. Like if you can talk to people, if you can be relatable, if you can, know your brief, if you will, and understand your product portfolio and the processes that go along with those products, like that's all important. But at the end of the day, it's setting proper expectations, not only with yourself, but with your leadership. Like when you get a quota from them at the start of the year, you're going to evaluate it together. Maybe you go back and forth a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's like setting proper expectations will allow you to achieve reasonable results. Because if you set ridiculous expectations, obviously you're going to fall flat. Obviously you're going to come short. But if you really like set reasonable expectations and then work every single day and have a bias towards action with whatever that is, it doesn't have to be sales. Any career, any path, entrepreneurship, whatever it is, if you set realistic expectations, have a bias towards action, and continue to try to be 1% better every day, whatever that means, you're going to get there. And I think that is such an important thing, is that people get into a career like sales where, a lot of, at least in my business, a lot of it is like half your pay is a base salary, the other half you got to go earn, which is commission.
Right.
A lot of people get scared of that and they're like, I need to go sell, a million things ASAP or else I'm out, or else I'm not going to make money, or else. And a lot of it is like, just slow down. Like have that bias towards action, but do it in a calculated, strategic way that each day you get a little bit closer to your end result, which was already set with you and with your leadership. And you guys can reflect back on that and say, hey, here's our North Star. When we get crazy and things go sideways, like what is our North Star? And that's been a huge help for me, is like at the end of the day, no matter how stressful or crazy or whatever it's been, to look back on my North Star and remember the expectations I set with myself for the work I'm going to do and the work ethic I'm going to have, as well as the results that I set with my leadership and that they kind of pass to me. If we agree on things, like we're moving together, you're going to be in a good spot.
I'm curious. You did say you don't really need to be a certain personality type to be in sales. I'm
To an
sure
extent.
certain personalities probably thrive better than
Totally.
others. Do you think that you need to be like a very money motivated, money driven person?
I really don't. I really don't. Like, I think, sure, those things, like, let me back up. Money, coin operated, money driven, whatever you want to call it, extroverted, strong presence, like all those things are important. And sure, they may give you like a slight advantage, but I don't think that is necessarily the case. In my experience over my last 7 years, like when I had the mindset of like, I got to get this deal, more so than not, it didn't happen because I was acting unnaturally. And oftentimes like common sense will prevail in the sense that if you're operating in the mindset of, I need to help my customer deliver their desired outcome, and here's the right thing to discuss with them at the right time, then the deal will happen.
Yeah.
You need to have, the technical win. This is probably industry specific terms, but like having the technical win, meaning the technology is the right fit for the customer and they agree on that. And also like the financial aspect of it needs to make sense financially. And they need to be bought into that and be supportive of that, of them selling that up the chain. Like all those things are important. But to answer your question, like being money motivated helps nobody including yourself, in my opinion. Because a lot of people can be money motivated and be in different careers, but unless you're operating in an authentic way, I think people will pick up on that unnatural motion and be like, you're just trying to sell me something to get $1. Like, I don't want any part of that.
It's like the more that you want it, the less it's going to happen because you're, as you said, acting unnaturally. You're forcing something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think authenticity, not even just in corporate America, just in like a relationship with a friend or with a business partner or a wife or a girlfriend or whatever, I think authenticity is the most important thing, but also the hardest thing to find sometimes is, and that's something I pride myself on, is like when I walk into the room, I walk in as myself and I'm just my true authentic self, whether it's a VP or C-level executive at work, or it's just chopping it up with you on the podcast. Like I, for the most part, operate in the same manner in every single room that I'm in.
I think that's a good way to switch gears a little bit. Something I admire a lot about you is your ability to, as you said it earlier, kind of get yourself in the room or get in the conversation with the right people. And you do it in a way that isn't intrusive. Like we've all heard about people who are like, send the DM, like, send the message, reach out, start the conversation. But oftentimes people do that. One, their intention is off because they want it, similar to what we just said. They want it so bad, it seems forced and it's unnatural and it doesn't come across in a genuine way. And the other thing is they're just kind of like maybe saying the wrong things, or they're not reciprocating. They're not offering any value. They're just asking for something in return. So I would like to hear your perspective about, like, you have these random connections that always blow my mind. I'm like, how the fuck are you hooked up with these people? And you're just like, dude, DM'd him. I don't know. And it's like, it seems like a recurring theme for you. But one, like, how did you, for me, I just don't like oftentimes think about connecting that way, because I feel like people are like closed off, when really just because you have a couple thousand followers doesn't mean you're not going to DM somebody back, right? Totally. So talk to me about your mindset about outreach and connecting with people who have, maybe a lot of followers, or maybe are well connected that you want to get acquainted with.
Yeah, so two things stick out to me. One, I'm not impressed by however many followers people have. I'm impressed by the type of person they are and their character. And that's kind of the people that I try to attract in my life, is being surrounded by good people. And the second thing is, the worst thing they're going to say is no. So just do it. They don't know you already. And if they don't respond to you, they still don't know you. And you don't know them. And you didn't lose anything. Just do it. Like, it's super simple. And people often overlook that. Like analysis paralysis, if you will. But for me, like, Ken Rideout is a great example. I was going, and this is just a unique story, but Ken, for people who don't know, is like, from an amateur perspective, the best of the best marathoners over 50. I think he holds the number one spot, I think, on Abbott over 50, who's not a professional. We can give Ken a plug on this after. But anyways, Ken is a Boston guy, really cool story. Went down the Wall Street path, was in the finance world, had his own challenges, came back, super focused on fitness, did Ironmans, did cycling things, did, obviously a bunch of marathons, like super, super interesting story. But the thing that sticks out the most with Ken is his character. Like, he's just a go-getter. He's a hustler. He's a hard worker. And that's what drew me to his page. And I forget how I got connected with him initially, but anyways, like, kind of went back and forth, just like liking stories and, responding to a couple stories and whatnot. But, I was on a bachelor trip in Nashville. And obviously, for those who aren't from Charlotte, Nashville is a relatively close drive. So we drove, me, my buddy Tanner, and my buddy Scott. So we all drove together for our other buddy's bachelor party. And I had recently bought a camera. And it's like a $1,000 camera. Like, to me, it's super nice. To you with this stuff, it's like whatever. But to me, it was better than an iPhone. So I was like, all right, like, I go hiking a lot. I want to have a nice camera when I go on these trips and remember these things and whatnot. So I got a camera, I got a nice lens, and I went to Nashville. And I was like, I'll take pictures for my buddy's bachelor party and we can look at them later and it'll be a great memory for him. But we got there a day earlier than the rest of his buddies coming from New York. And I was like, I know Ken lives in Nashville. Like, that'd be cool if I could link up with him. So I was like, looking at his page, and it looks like he just sets his phone down and records his own videos and just works his ass off on the track or on a run or whatnot. So I hit him up and was like, "What's up, Ken? You know, love the content. I'm going to be in Nashville on Friday, which is like in 2 days. Would love to swing by and, see how you work. And, for your time, I'll snap a couple pictures of you and you can post them as content for your page. And, if you use them, great. If not, like, would love 5 minutes of your time." And he hit me back. It was like, "Meet me at the track at this time." So long story short, I'm like, oh shit, now I got to learn how to use the camera and take pictures of him and all this stuff. So I go to the track and I get there like a half hour early. I go out to the track. I'm like setting all the settings. I'm like on YouTube, like, oh, I should look at aperture and ISO and all these things. I had no idea what I was doing.
I didn't realize you had never used the camera at that point.
Not to that extent. No, I had no idea. Like it was very, very new to me.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I'm there and I think we're meeting at like 10 a.m. or something. And anyways, it's 10:15, 10:30. I'm like, damn, he's not going to come. He just told me to show up. Like, he's not going to show up. Long story short, I text him like, "Hey man, are we still good?" He hits me back immediately. He's like, "Oh shit, I totally forgot. I'm putting my shoes on now." He puts his shoes on and runs to the track. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I just see this dude cruise by me. He's like, "Run with me, let's go." So I put the camera down. I'm not in running attire or shoes or whatnot. So now I'm jogging with him around the track. He's like, "Where are you from? What's your story?" He's like, "This is my workout for the day," whatever. We talked for like 2 minutes. I did a lap or two with him. And then I was like, "All right, like I'm going to grab the camera and get pictures of you and a couple of videos and like we'll chop it up after." He's like, "Yep, sounds good." So we did our thing and we talked for 5 minutes after. I just wanted to pick his brain on marathon running. Like, why marathons? Like, what knowledge can you give me as a new runner? Like, super interested in the sport, all this stuff. And it was funny, something he said that stuck out, which is the reason I'm telling you this story, is he said I was the first person to approach him without asking for anything other than time. All I asked for was, "Hey, dude, like, let me pick your brain for like 5 minutes." And he said everybody else is like, "Hey, let me come on this podcast or come talk to these people," or like, "Hey, can we partner with you on X?" Like, everybody always wanted something out of him that was more than just like a quick conversation. And for me, I was like, "Dude, I just want to pick your brain for 5 minutes." And he appreciated that. I was the first person who just wanted to offer free pictures and videos for his page. And, that's kind of what got me in with Ken. And, we haven't talked in a couple of months, but as I was going through the process of like buying my triathlon bike and prepping for Boston and all these things, like he was a huge help. I would call him, he would answer, or he would shoot me a text like, "Hey, call you at 5, call you at 6. We would talk for like 20 minutes and he gives me really good advice. And not only the professional world, but as well as like the personal side with fitness and other things. So long-winded answer and story to your question. But at the end of the day, man, just like the worst these people are going to say is no. Like, they're a person too. They probably got an iPhone or whatever, just like you, and they got a million DMs. So if they see yours, great. If they don't, whatever. You didn't lose anything.
Yeah.
It's my opinion.
Yeah, that's a badass story. That was like when I first got introduced to you, was through that interaction, because you're like, "Dude, I need somebody to come do some video.
Yeah.
Let's go to Nashville." And I'm like, "Bro, I don't really do pro bono stuff." Because I came up doing that for years and years, and now I'm like 6 years into my career. I'm like,
Yeah.
Don't really do that. But for the right opportunity, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So that never materialized. But
that's funny.
We were talking about it.
I totally forgot that's how we initially got connected.
Yeah.
I was like, who do I know that does video in Charlotte?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, Chase does.
Yeah, dude.
That's funny.
That is that yours squeaking, or is that?
My chair's going nuts.
It's
over
the
here.
chair?
Yeah.
All right. We'll get that.
Couple screws loose.
We'll get some WD-40 for next time. Excuse me. But yeah, I love that story about Ken. But like, that seems to happen just time and time again. Talk to me about how you got hooked up with Jacob Zemer in the first place. He's your nutritionist, right?
Yeah, he's my coach. Yeah, he's a man.
Did you just hear about him you found his social, or how did that happen?
I followed him on Instagram, he had like 7,000 or 8,000 followers, and now he's got like 250. So I knew him a little bit before he kind of blew up, but he was working with Brian Mazza, who I think we both follow, posts really good content. And I was like, oh, interesting. He has a coach. Like, I wonder what he does for him. followed Jake, was watching his content, super helpful. And I was of the mindset right when I started running, I was like, I just spent this time like putting on some weight. Like I don't want to lose it. If anything, I want to gain weight. Like I want to put on muscle while I'm running these miles. And it was right around the time that COVID hit. So everybody was working from home and the gyms were closed and all this stuff. So long story short, I hit him up, was like, hey, I would love a coach. I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z. Can you help me? And he's like, yep, I'll call you tomorrow. Called me. We get on like a consulting call, walk through the process, the price, and I'm like, done, let's do it. And I spent probably, 4 to 6 months with him just hitting the weights and putting on size and muscle. And I ended up gaining like almost 20 pounds with him in like a 6-month period, which is huge for me. I'm much lighter than that at this point, but went through a huge bulk process with him and then a cutting process where I leaned out and got ready for my first race. And it was an awesome experience. And he's a huge help. And, obviously he's blown up on social media and, rightfully so. Like he puts out really good content. He's a great person. And he'll be on the pod soon enough. I think July he's going to come down and we'll chop it up with him. But yeah, he's a great dude. And he's somebody who just truly like cares about the outcomes of his clients. It's definitely not just pay me and I'll send you a BS plan. He texts me every morning and he says, send your logs every Friday, weigh in. Like he is very intentional with his clients and I appreciate that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Very excited to have a conversation with him down the road. But kind of staying with the social media theme a little bit here, you have, and we chatted about this a little bit last time, but you've transitioned a little bit into, posting your own content from where you used to be. And we used to, again, last episode we talked about like, you're in this lane and you want to transition, you're developing, you're changing as a person and the content you're producing and the content you're putting out. And so you've kind of stepped into a new role for yourself this year and putting out some new content. And that was a scary thing for you at first, right?
Totally.
Talk to me about what that process has been like and where you ideally want to take that and the direction that's going.
Yeah, candidly, like I don't have an end goal in mind with that. For me, it was really for me. Like, and I've talked about this with you before, maybe off camera, but I view social media as like a scrapbook, a digital scrapbook for me when I'm 80 to look back on and be like, remember when we did that? Remember when we ran the Boston Marathon? Remember when? And that's kind of my thought process. But that was the first lane. But then I started posting things and people were hitting me up being like, dude, I love the workouts or, love the discipline. Like, I've been wanting to run. Can you help me with X? And that's kind of how that came about. But for me, it's A, the scrapbook, and B, like, it's cool to see people kind of build a community around, something that I consider as bettering yourself through fitness. And I think that's really cool to talk to people who are, of the same mindset and have similar goals as you. So for me with social media, it's kind of, I was posting those weekly vlogs and was posting them as weekly recaps to my training for Boston. I'll pick them back up as I start training for Berlin. I'm kind of pausing the running a little bit, a few miles here and there, obviously, but pausing the true prep. But yeah, man, like really the scrapbook side and the second side is like, it's cool to see people get inspired by you doing something that A, you love, and B, you're just trying to make yourself better. And in turn, and this cascades across all aspects of life, I should say, is as you better yourself, those around you in turn become better. And I truly believe that. And I think it's a really profound thing to see is like, hey, I maybe cut some friends off and got way more focused and stopped drinking and became very disciplined into marathon training. And in turn, like so many aspects of my life got better. Like across the board, you name something, it probably got better. And I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it's all about intention and discipline. But the social media thing is cool because it just allows everybody to be A, extremely accessible, but B, very inclusive.
Yeah. Who motivates you? Who do you look up to? Is it, your parents? Is it
you just mean in general?
Somebody in the fitness community? Yeah, like who inspires you? Is there anybody that kind of stands out for you?
Yeah, like my grandfather, hands down. So my mom's dad, I mean, he's just the man. He's the man. He's like late 80s now, kind of slowing down, but he's just a hustler. He was in sales his whole life, grew up very humbly in Boston, and just worked his ass off. Just completely worked his ass off, built an amazing, beautiful family, and, was very successful. And he's still, dude, he's 88. He's playing tennis. Like, he swims every morning at 5:30. Like, he's a
Love that.
beast. He's a beast. But the one thing, and I say this all the time, the one thing that sticks out to me about him is his intention. He's extremely intentional with every aspect of his life, to the point where he sends monthly newsletters to the family, like, here's what Zach did last month. And, on that side of the family, I got like 20 something cousins. Like, it's a huge family, a huge Italian family in Boston. And it's like every single month, he's either saying something about them or he's calling me to tell me about a cousin. Like, hey, your cousin Thomas bought a house here. And, hey, Lauren's getting ready to have her baby. And it's so awesome, man, to see how intentional he is with every aspect of his life. It's what I want to be when I'm older, because going back to the authenticity piece, like, he is who he is. And I love that, it's unique.
I hope that I'm writing family newsletters and playing tennis.
Hell yeah.
At that age.
Hell yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You and I have a lot of different goals, and like, we're kind of all over the place sometimes, right? Because, you want to do a half Ironman, and then you want to run a marathon, and then you have these business goals, and you have this, that, and the other. How do you keep your head on straight on a day-to-day basis to say, these are my priorities. This is what's important to me. I have to fit all this into a day, and also make time for these people that I care about, my girlfriend, my family, these type things. How do you stay on top of that?
Dude, you have to be intentional. And I hate to keep using that word, but that's as simple as it is. It's not easy, but it's extremely simple. For example, yesterday, I got up early knowing that I had to do 3 workouts. I had a run scheduled, I had a swim scheduled, and I personally wanted to lift. But I also knew that I had dinner with my girlfriend, which is important. More important, probably, some would say. And I had to meet my buddies out with her and a couple other buddies to watch the Celtics game. And I had to work, a full-time sales job.
Yep.
So I knew that yesterday I have to get up a little earlier than I want to. I have to run probably before I eat breakfast. Then I'm going to have breakfast and immediately hop into a work call. I'm going to hang out a little bit, do my thing, work a little bit. Then I'm going to hop in the pool, swim for an hour, come out of the pool. On my way out of the pool, I was taking Zoom calls in my car. On my way back to the townhouse, hop in the shower, do my thing, go to the gym quickly, come back, get ready to go out, have dinner, meet the guys out. Like, very much so scheduled. And this through the last month or so of working with me, is like, if it's not on the calendar, A, it's definitely not happening, and B, like, a lot of the time, unfortunately, it's very back to back. So it is hard, to answer your question, it's very hard to keep my head on straight with all of these things going on. And I always say, like, sometimes, and I actually find this with a lot of people, I'm curious your thoughts on this, but sometimes I find that my biggest pros are my biggest cons. Meaning, it's great to me that I'm able to juggle all these different things, and it's great to me that I want to try so many different things, but it's very easy to slip into, hey, I'm not being the best over here because I got these 40 other things going on. And I find that with a lot of people is that, hey, you may be the best person at this, but because you're so all in and this is your biggest pro, like, it's also a con over here. And I'm curious, like, have you experienced that with your training? Because I know you're all over the place too. You got a million things going on.
Sure. I told you that too when we touched on this last week a little bit. It's like, I do get so all in on stuff. So much stuff falls by the wayside. That's why, going back to your word, being intentional and making sure, like, that cannot happen with my wife. That's just, it can't happen, right? So it's making sure you're prioritizing, things like with her, I have these date nights, and like, last year we do have date night every Wednesday, but like, it just started getting like, we would just eat in and whatever. And I was like, you know what, for my New Year's resolution, I want to spice it up a little bit. I'm like, I'm going to do 12 themes. So once a month, I'm going to do like a special themed date night, just to keep it like interesting and not to do the same shit. Because when you are training, when you are running a business, when you are climbing the ladder, you get into your routines, right? And it's really good for those things, but it's really bad for other things. Like, the monotony adds up with your loved ones, and they become affected negatively, where everything else is affected positively, right? And
that's the thing, man. We talked about this. You can't be so rigid with all things all the time. Because then you toe that line of all in versus all consumed, like we talked about, and you can very quickly become all consumed. So having balance, having intention, being disciplined, like these are all things that are very, very important and crucial, but also, really easy, in my opinion. Really simple, but not easy. Like very simple to say, hey, I need to get up earlier to get my shit done. Mm-hmm. It's very like simple to say, duh, like obviously I need to do that. The hard part is actually doing it. So you're spot on.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about, and we'll kind of end here, is, as we continue to have these conversations on the pod and like where we're going the next couple months, what are you working on personally? Maybe what is one thing maybe you're struggling with or want to get better at? And, where would you like to see not only this pod, but like your personal development go in the next couple months?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's being laser focused on training for the Berlin Marathon, and 12 days after is the Chicago Marathon, which is going to be a crazy experience. Super excited to travel with Francesca. We're doing a week in Maine. We're going to unplug and just be by the beach and hang on this cliff house thing. I'll send you a link to it. It's super cool. I'm excited, man, to just have balance. And I think that's something that I lost, in the Boston prep to a point about struggling was I lost that balance of, like I mentioned that stool analogy with the four legs. Like it's easy to get rocky. It's easy to drop one thing off over here and then be too all in on one thing. So I'm excited to get balance back. I'm excited to travel. I'm excited to go back into this prep and just be more intentional. Like one thing that, and candidly, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. Like I oftentimes are like, I'm getting up at 5. I'm getting up at 5. The second the alarm hits, feet are on the ground, I'm out. And then it's 5:30, and then I snoozed it again, and I didn't mean to, but now it's 6:15, and I'm like, oh no, it's 7:30. Like it just the morning goes on, and you just don't execute on what you said you were going to, and that's something that I want to get back to, and I have been getting back to it, the last couple of weeks, and it's felt amazing. Yesterday's a great example of just getting up and getting it done. So for me, just again, it's simple, is just being more intentional, continuing to be disciplined, and increasing balance across personal goals, fitness goals, the podcast, career, whatever it may be, just continuing to have balance. But how about you?
Well, one thing I was going to say off of that is like one thing. So I've known you long enough to know like Zach does what Zach wants to do. And I also have talked to Casey enough where she's like, Zach does what Zach wants to do. So, but it's also like when I see you dialed in, I know, I can just meet you in the afternoon, but I already can tell like, you got your workout in this morning. You did everything you needed to do this morning because like it's the way you carry yourself. It's the way that you approach everything else in your life when you're hitting your stride. You know what I'm saying? When you're being intentional, when you're waking up when you're supposed to. And it's weird. Like I could tell when you're dialed in and you just seem that way right now. And you have that gumption about you. And it's just like good things. Not to say, you were in a bad place before, but like, it just carries with you, it's like a quiet confidence that you don't really have to say anything, but you're laser focused and you just kind of carry yourself a different way. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying day by day.
Yeah. It's fun though. I mean, that's what we all strive for. It's like the toughest part is to get there and stay there. Right. Because again, everything else is coming at you. Shit's hitting the fan.
What you just said resonates so heavy with me because I heard maybe it was a song lyric or something, but it's not about who gets there first, it's about who stays. And I think that's such an interesting thing to think about, man. It's because everybody's in the rat race to get there and they ignore the journey. And the journey is the most important part to the destination. The destination is cool, but it's a flash in the pan. So it's about who stays, about who appreciates the journey, gets to that destination, and then stays intentional and balanced and disciplined. And it's kind of what this podcast is about, man. That's why I'm so fired up about it.
Yeah. Me too, brother. Well, I think that's a great way to wrap it up. Thank you for giving us a little BTS on the come up and very stoked about what we have to come. So I appreciate you.
Likewise,
appreciate the time, brother.
Thank you. Likewise. All right, guys. Thank you so much for your support on each and every episode of the Hybrid Human Podcast. It really means the world to us. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe to the channel. Stay up to date with new content moving forward.